Hello, this is RetroAhoy, and this is Game Over. In this episode, Syndicate, an isometric tactical shooter, wrapped in a dystopian cyberpunk setting. Syndicate was published in 1993 by Electronic Arts, and developed by Bullfrog Productions, based in Guildford in the UK. Bullfrog's first game was Fusion in 1988, a top-down shoot-'em-up, programmed and designed in part by studio co-founder Peter Molyneux. In 1989, Populous would be the game that would help establish their reputation, being arguably the first God game, and one that would kickstart an entire genre. Populous was followed 2 years later with a sequel in Populous 2, Trials of the Olympian Gods. Soon after, Bullfrog would release Syndicate, a drastic departure from the mythical setting. Cyberpunk was a popular theme for video games of the era, stemming from science fiction literature of the late 20th century and its transition to cinema, such as Blade Runner in 1982. 1988's Neuromancer was among the first cyberpunk games, a loose adaptation of William Gibson's 1984 novel into an interactive adventure, set in a futuristic Chiba city, Japan. Adventure games were a popular genre for the theme, with titles such as BAT taking advantage of the newer 16-bit hardware to illustrate the game's vision of a bleak future society. Some titles introduced more action, such as Shadowrun on the SNES in 1993, a game based on the tabletop RPG of the same name. With a mix of RPG elements and real-time action, this was a memorable title with a rich cyberpunk narrative. Syndicate is set in a futuristic world ruled by corporations. With global reach and a distinct lack of morals, any means of furthering the corporation's interest is fair game. You play an executive in charge of up to 4 cyborg agents, with a host of cybernetic upgrades and an arsenal of high-tech weaponry at your disposal. These agents are your pawns in a game of global domination. As you complete each mission, you extend your corporation's reach into that domain, and swell the coffers with the resultant tax income. Rival corporations were the key threat, with each employing their own cyborg agents in a manner similar to you. Killing enemy agents was a common objective in many missions, as eliminating all resistance left the region ripe for the taking. Other missions included more surgical assassinations with a single specific target, and persuasion missions, in which you have to employ a device called a persuadatron to encourage enemy scientists to join your cause. Most solutions grow from the barrel of a gun, however, and as such you have quite some hardware at your disposal. Your agents start with pistols, sufficient for the first couple of missions, but later outclassed by progressively more powerful automatic weapons, such as the Uzi, and the devastating power and awesome sound of the minigun. More specialist weapons are available too, including weapons ideal for tackling unsuspecting foes at long range, and the massive explosive ordnance the rocket-launching Gauss gun offered. These later weapons weren't available from the outset. Instead, you had to allot funds to your R&D department to unlock them for purchase. Cyborg upgrades were another potential avenue for research, and a variety could be purchased for your agents in the field, enhancing their combat ability. Later missions have a greater dependence on such upgrades, and will require a full set of 4 upgraded cyborgs armed to the teeth, as the difficulty level increases steadily with each region unlocked. Rival Syndicate agents become better equipped, and without quick reflexes and improved armor, you won't last long. The dystopian city streets of Syndicate teem with low life and high tech. Similarly, cyberpunk title System Shock was released the year after the first Syndicate game. With a full 3D environment and immersive world, it's arguably the first cyberpunk first-person shooter, and its sequel in 1999 would lay the foundations for the more recent BioShock series. Deus Ex took inspiration from System Shock and occupies a similar genre, a fusion of first-person shooter and RPG, set in a familiar dystopian future typical of a cyberpunk setting. The Deus Ex universe was revisited recently with 2011's Deus Ex Human Revolution, a fairly faithful update to the original's mechanics, which is less than can be said for the ultimate fate of this Syndicate franchise. Syndicate would get an expansion in American Revolt, a set of new missions in which you must quell a rebellion in the Americas. It was noted for a considerable ramp in difficulty compared to the original mission set, ideal for those wanting a challenge. Syndicate Wars would be released in 1996, the first true sequel to the original game, and marking the transition from isometric graphics to 3D, running on a modified Magic Carpet engine. The game didn't stray too far from the original, barring visual changes, but the game lacked the influence of Sean Cooper and reviewed only moderately well, lacking the critical acclaim of the original. Bullfrog established quite a reputation at the start of the 90s and went on to produce a number of successful games during this period. Theme Park was one such title in 1994. Although quite a radical departure from the dark dystopia of Syndicate, it was a well-polished and innovative take on the business management genre, and a key inspiration for the later Rollercoaster Tycoon. Bullfrog were acquired by Electronic Arts in 1995, perhaps marking the beginning of the end, but would release a few good titles yet, such as the successor to Theme Park, Theme Hospital in 1997, along with the Dungeon Keeper series. Bullfrog co-founder, Peter Molyneux, left the studio in 1997 to found Lionhead Studios, known for ambitious god game Black and White in 2001 and the Fable series, including the most recent entry Fable 3 and the forthcoming Kinect-only Fable The Journey. Theme Park Inc., also known as Sim Coaster, would be Bullfrog's last title in 2001. The studio was ultimately combined into EA UK in 2004. EA UK, later known as Brightlight, would close its doors in 2011. Electronic Arts retained the rights to the Syndicate franchise and, together with Starbreeze Studios, previously responsible for The Darkness, released a series reboot in early 2012. The new game adopts a more market-friendly first-person shooter mantle, with the game being a far cry from the first. Still, it rekindles some of the atmosphere of the Syndicate universe, and features some of the weapons and concepts first introduced in the original. Dark, brooding, and atmospheric, the original Syndicate is a satisfying shooter in a compelling universe. Few real-time squad-based strategy games have matched it, and fewer still can boast a weapon as satisfying to use as the Gauss gun. Bullfrog may be no more, but their legacy remains. This has been Syndicate, and this is Game Over. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join me next time, when we'll be covering Forgotten Realms from a title that would open the gate for an upstart studio and raise the bar for later RPGs. Until then, farewell.